At the Old North Bridge, this is where the shot heard around the world was fired on April the 19th, 1775. And the situation is there is 95 redcoats guarding this bridge to prevent the militia coming in and interfering with the work being done by Colonel Smith in the town of Concord. The militia we're speaking of is 400 men, 150 from the town of Concord and 250 from the surrounding towns up on the hill. It is a standoff. Nobody is willing to break the standoff until such time as they look into the town of Concord, which you can easily see because those trees would not be in existence in those days. The country would be more or less denuded of trees because trees are used for firewood to heat your house. As the English set a bonfire to burn the munitions in town, a spark from that bonfire sets alight a close by building called the Town Hall that is in flames. The redcoats form a bucket brigade to quench that fire. However, before it's entirely quenched, the people up on the hill see the fire and the question is asked, are we going to allow the town to be burning down? We assume that the English are just burning down the town, and of course they replied, no, we're not going to allow that to happen, we're going to prevent that. Now, we're going to discuss briefly the man in the statue here. This statue represents one particular individual, and his name is Isaac Davis. And who Isaac Davis is? He is the captain of the Acton Minutemen. Acton is a town 6 miles over the hill here. He is a metalsmith, and because he's a metalsmith, he's able to fashion for his soldiers rudimentary body armor and also bayonets. As I said yesterday, the Americans by and large had no bayonets whatsoever. So this little group of men, 40 Minutemen, were outfitted better than most Americans would be. It is said that this man had a premonition of his death. He's a 26-year-old man with 4 children. His wife would have addressed him on leaving, and she would say, take care, be careful, and he just turned back and he says, take care of the children, and he walked away. Now he also had at his disposal a drummer boy and a fife player, and he has those 2 musicians play a very specific tune as they march the 6 miles over here to Concord, and that tune was known as the White Cockade. That was a well-known tune. It referred to the battle that took place 29 years before that, in which the Highlanders of Scotland, trying to support Bonnie Prince Charles, marched into the Battle of Culloden, and most of them did not march out because it was an absolute rout and victory for the English, and a lot of these Highlanders got killed. Because this man was playing that particular tune, it would have signified to the redcoats on the bridge that somebody up on the hill was intent on wreaking vengeance for the slaughter that had happened 29 years before that. And that would have been a psychological impact on the redcoats here on the hill.
Okay.
Now, when Colonel Barrett asked who was going to lead the men down to prevent the town from being burned, nobody answered until Isaac Davis stood forward, and his exact words was, I am not afraid to go, and I do not have a man with me who is afraid to go. And with that, he moved over to the front of the column with his men, and he, Colonel Brown, and Major Buttrick led the Americans down the side, approaching the bridge. The English retreated to the other side of the bridge. As the men approached them, they would have gotten more intimidated by the large number approaching them. They fired a warning shot into the river, but immediately followed up with a volley of live ammunition. That volley sent a musket ball through the chest of this man here, Isaac Davis, and killed him on the spot. He fell here, hit his head against the stone. That's why we know the exact location. That stone is over in the Acton Museum today. Another man from Acton was also killed. Some of the Americans believed they weren't firing live ammunition at all. However, Major Buttrick, being a veteran, knew exactly what was going on, and he gave the words, for God's sake, soldiers, fire, for God's sake, fire. Those are important words, because once the Americans fired into the English soldiers on the other side, killing 2, wounding 4 of the officers, throwing them into disarray. They turned on their heels and they ran as fast as they could back into the town of Concord, which is just a third of a mile, as we saw. Now, the reason that was the important shot was because this is the shot given as a result of an order from an American officer to fire on the forces of the king. That was outright treason. What had happened in Lexington could be explained away by a bit of an accident, confusion, unfortunate event, whatever. But this was outright treason, and that was the beginning of the war. Now, why we say this statue here is Isaac Davis is because 100 years after the battle, the local sculptor, Daniel Chester French, who sculpted Lincoln's monument down in Washington, D.C., he sculpted this statue from melted down cannon from the Civil War. He asked a descendant of Isaac Davis to model the statue. He had him dress in the exact clothes that Isaac Davis wore that day, which were on display at the museum back at Akron. His leggings, his breeches, his boots, his musket, his hat, his overcoat, and that is why it's an exact representation of the man Isaac Davis. It is a symbolic statue. The man's left foot is facing forward to signify that he is stepping into the unknown. He's laying aside his overcoat on his plough, which he would have preferred to attend to. He's picking up his musket because he's forced to, and he's stepping into whatever the future holds for him. And that is the occurrences of the Old North Bridge, April the 19th, 1775. This is where the United States began. This is the start of the American Revolution right now.
Why did the British fire back? Because there was treason.